Greetings, cherished anointed ones. Let's not pretend anymore. This isn't some TikTok rabbit hole or a recycled conspiracy from the depths of the internet. This is classified energy, raw spiritual intel only decoded by those who've been through the fire. And you've become more dangerous in silence than most are in power. Your stillness speaks louder than their speeches. Your presence has begun to haunt the whispers in hidden chambers. The kind of presence that makes even the shadows flinch and mutter your name like a warning. While world leaders gather to discuss global affairs, Elon Musk is watching you. Why? Because he sees what they refuse to admit. You are not a follower of systems. You are a breaker of them. You don't need titles, policies, or handshakes to shift reality. You are the shift. Elon didn't take you seriously because of what you said. He took you seriously because of what you carry. That divine frequency, that silent storm, that classified energy that sends alerts into the unseen whenever you simply exist. So no, this isn't a rumor. This isn't theory. This is truth. You, the chosen one, are being taken more seriously by the one who engineers rockets and rewrites industries than by those running nations, because he knows. You're not just part of the future, you were sent to shake it. Because it just got out that you are the one who has been recommended by a Secret Service agent. They also said more than simply, you're powerful. You ought to run for office, they suggested. Give it time to settle. That one right there, that's leadership, stated the same agents who have been trained to detect national threats, decipher body language in milliseconds, and identify a liar 3 heartbeats before the lie is spoken. Additionally, don't pretend that you were unaware of this change. The same individuals who protect presidents were quietly researching you, as if you were a new weapon in human form, while others were mocking your spiritual downloads and labeling you too deep. The Secret Service is really taught to examine unusual conduct and spot subtle indications of leadership under duress. They have security clearance and are mind readers, so they're more than simply muscle. And you know what? Without ever applying, you passed all of the unseen tests. You didn't campaign for this, of course. You were too preoccupied with overcoming betrayal, avoiding narcissists, resolving your generational trauma, and finding out how to fast spiritually at 3 in the morning while simultaneously battling hunger demons. Now, you're being expected to take center stage, something you never asked for. The system is aware that it made a mistake. With no PR staff, no funders, no script, just the unvarnished truth, and a history of outlasting every setup they threw at you. You made it this far when you weren't meant to. Let's get started. Why did a Secret Service member just say you ought to be a country's leader? More significantly, what did they see in you that the outside world has yet to acknowledge? Let's unravel this. First of all, they have been watching you for years in order to track your leadership style in real time, not to arrest you. They didn't only observe you. They conducted in-depth research on you, not based on rumors or public opinion. They were keeping an eye on you because you were a mystery that didn't fit the model, not because you posed a danger to national security. They observed your movements when there was no applause. They saw your behavior when you were wrongfully accused, cornered, and surrounded by others who want to stir up trouble in order to damage your reputation. You didn't go insane. Your morals were intact. They were interested in it. Under pressed, most individuals break. You didn't. You remained composed but not quiet, firm but not stupid. Considering everything you were going through, you exuded a kind of elegance that didn't make sense. You lacked a platform, authority, and an official title. You nonetheless moved as if you were aware that powers beyond of human vision were observing you. It wasn't conceit. Authority was that. There is no need for a platform for true leadership. It manifests at the most difficult times, when no one is applauding, and it still acts morally. They saw your refusal to accept money at the expense of your morals. They saw you lose family members and friends as a result of your refusal to compromise your morals. When you were being pulled through the muck, they saw that you held your head high. It wasn't a sign of weakness. Discipline was that. And that's what leaders are made of. Not fame or wealth, but suffering, perseverance, and self-control. You had no idea that you were being assessed the whole time. Charming isn't why that agency didn't recommend you. Your solidity is the reason they recommended you. You've already successfully navigated the spiritual and emotional equivalent of psychological warfare. The system didn't misinterpret you, but the world could have. They are now indicating what heaven has previously spoken. You didn't live a random life. You just received clearance for a whole new level after serving a wonderful probationary time. Second, you are the blueprint that hasn't been purchased. They are in dire need of a leader that isn't a phony. Not only are you unique, but you pose a threat to the mold. The pre-approved, pre-scripted, and pre-owned production line produced all of the so-called leaders they have supported. Values are negotiable. Speeches are ghost-written, and smiles are practiced. However, you arrived without any support, lobbying, or a great manipulator. You still arouse thoughts, change moods, and demand attention. You didn't adhere to their plan. The blueprint they didn't anticipate is you. Every aspect of you deviates from their formula, which they have spent years crafting to conform to public expectations. Applause is not something you pursue. Permission is not something you wait for. When it's unpopular, you talk. When it's inconvenient, you move. And when sitting quietly would be more convenient, you stand. Political strategy is not what that is. Spiritual conviction is that. That was noticed by the agent. They saw more than simply a candidate. They saw a lifeline for the people, but a danger to the system. You stand for what the general public wants and the establishment dreads. An individual who cannot be bought, led, or silenced. They have attempted to produce artificial leadership, but a PR agency cannot produce your type of genuineness. It is the result of refinement in fire. Power wasn't your audition. By surviving what should have shattered you, you gained power. The system is now looking to you because it is desperate and has run out of options. You're the only one who didn't, not because you pleaded for it. Politics is not being played out there. That's the blueprint becoming human at last, destiny rising, and protocol blazing. Third, they understood that you were uncontrollable, and you should take the lead for just that reason. You are uncontrollable. They are aware that you are destined to be a leader because of this. They hurled at you everything that often destroys people: betrayals, manipulation, rejection, and false charges that would have caused most people to go insane or become resentful. You remained strong, not simply survived it. Pretending doesn't lead to that level of stability in the face of turmoil. It results from having roots. When they observed it, they were first alarmed, since uncontrollable individuals are often branded as threats. However, that terror eventually gave way to respect. They understood that you are not erratic. You just cannot be shaken. You don't move in response to attention or emotion. You make decisions based on the truth, which is uncommon. A little amount of money, power, or recognition can influence most people, but you have repeatedly shown that your soul is not for sale. You maintained your composure as others attempted to make you act out. You remained grounded while they attempted to get you to compromise your morals. Self-control like that is leadership, not the phony sort, which is attained by genuine spiritual growth. They observed your reactions to circumstances that were obviously intended to make you seem foolish or give up. You didn't seek retribution. You didn't attempt to use drama to clear your reputation. You let your honesty do the talking. They realized you weren't emotionally responding at that point. You were strategic in your spirituality. That is the difference between someone who is prepared for power and someone who only desires it. You've previously experienced fire, and rather than emerging resentful or damaged, You emerged with wisdom. That gives them all the information they need. You don't have an ego. You have a purpose in life. Furthermore, because you don't need what they're giving, individuals like you are unmanageable. Because of this, you are valuable to those who still believe in justice, but harmful to those who are corrupt. They are aware that you are no longer a puppet. You are an inspiration to others because you lead, not simply stand when the storm comes. Fourth, they understand that speaking to souls rather than simply listeners is what transforms countries. You don't speak as if you're attempting to win over a lot of people. People sense that you're attempting to rouse the dead with your words. It's not about flawless delivery or flowery wording. It's the weight of your words, the passion, the unvarnishedness, the spirit. You're exposing, not performing. And that is what really disturbs people. It wasn't simply your words that the Secret Service agent heard. After you talked, they observed what transpired. Eyes widened, the room moved. As if something old had been awakened inside them, they sat still, contemplating what had just happened. It isn't charisma. Impact is that. Most famous people speak to their own brains. You're talking about something more profound. You get to the actual people, the ones they've been trained to hide, by cutting through their barriers, programming, forced clapping, and artificial grins. Even in private, you speak things that most people are too afraid to express. You introduce the truth into spaces where falsehoods have long thrived. You don't do it to offend either. You can't avoid it, so you do it. You are who you are. There is spiritual electricity in your voice, and even if they don't know why, those who are able to detect energy experience it right away. They saw it that way. Every polished politician, every prepared speech every crowd-pleasing soundbite. They've heard it all. However, there is no filter when you speak. Pretending is not an option. Addiction to approval does not exist. Even if your voice trembles, you speak what has to be spoken. Additionally, individuals feel convicted by your remarks rather than merely remembering them. Leadership seminars don't teach that kind of communication. That comes from traveling through truth, enduring sorrow, and shedding honesty. You change people, not just educate them. You disclose, rather than just talk. And it doesn't seem like politics when someone like you speaks out at a period of disarray on a global scale. It has the sound of prophecy. They're listening because of this, because you're out here rescuing people from spiritual comas. And that transforms countries, while others are battling for votes. Number 5, you're secure with it since they know you've never sought power. You never pleaded for authority. You never used manipulation to get power. You were quietly working behind the scenes, healing, maturing, breaking generational patterns, and speaking the truth even at great personal sacrifice, while others were vying for followers, likes, and approval. That's what made you unique. You had no intention of being noticed. All you were attempting to do was keep tidy, and they observed just that. Those with the greatest desire for power are often the least equipped to hold it. The role is more important to them than the responsibilities. However, you already bear the burden without the title. People who never expressed gratitude have been safeguarded by you. When it would have been simpler to remain quiet, you spoke out. You have given up your comfort to stand for what is right, and you never beg for praise. You're secure with power when you have that type of calm strength because it doesn't make you drunk. That was noticed by the agent. Over time, they observed your behavior. They saw your movements while no one was praising you. They saw your composure when it would have been simpler to strike back. They saw how, despite having the opportunity, you never manipulated others with your influence. They trust it, not your words or your history. Your life demonstrates that you wouldn't abuse authority to exert control or dominance. It would be used for restoration, elevation, and protection. Spirituality is a prerequisite for true leadership. Running things is not the point. Being trusted with people's hearts is the key. And that weight is holy. You know that. You don't yearn for authority. You long for justice. You don't need adoration. To win, you must tell the truth. And it makes you dangerous in the greatest manner conceivable in a world full of actors. They are now supporting you because of this. Because you chose not to play the game. Not because you did. And you demonstrated something uncommon in the process. Power becomes healing rather than harmful when it is in the proper hands. Sixth, your training comes from your trauma. They are aware that you have a deeper understanding of injustice than the judges. You didn't read a book on injustice. It wasn't discussed in a seminar. You saw it firsthand, with genuine wounds and quiet when there ought to have been encouragement. You understand what it's like to have the system that was meant to protect you ignore you, misinterpret you, and unjustly accuse you. You didn't just make it through. You saw right through it. Every deception, every pretext, your months, every nuanced strategy to shatter your spirit and make you believe that your suffering was only a necessary part of the process. Character development was not what that was. It was war. And you survived without becoming icy. Your voice is given weight because of that. It isn't a hypothesis. Suffering is the birthplace of truth. People discuss injustice as if it were a contentious issue. However, you experienced what it's like to have no voice in a society that only listens to the strong. You have encountered psychological manipulations, spiritual assassination attempts, and situations when your dignity was violated just by being true to yourself. You weren't just disregarded. You were the target. You were correct, not because you were mistaken. They also had no influence over it. Your viewpoint cannot thus be purchased, changed, or diluted. You have already passed through the furnace that was used to subdue the majority of humanity. As a victim, you did not emerge. Now that you can see through everything, you come out dangerous. The system doesn't need to be explained to you. You are the proof of the system. Your life serves as a real example of how severely damaged things are, and how much more severely they must be restored. You weren't recommended by that Secret Service agent for show. They supported you because they understand that textbooks cannot provide actual justice. The trenches are the source of it. They are aware that the only person who can be trusted to retain power is someone who has been crucified by it. Not only are you qualified, you are the change they have been hesitant to implement. Furthermore, you didn't seek for this position. However, no one really comprehends justice like the person who had to defend their humanity and still refused to transform into a monster in response. Seventh, your whole life has been a campaign of silence. The globe is now making up ground. Long before anybody knew your identity, you were waging a campaign. However, it was devoid of posters and slogans. There were storms, setups, betrayals, and periods of extreme loneliness during which no one applauded or offered assistance. Yet you continued to advance with purpose. They didn't see it at first glance. However, that's precisely what taught you. You were being stripped, purified, and created in quiet, while others were networking and attempting to please others. Every heartache was a vote for paradise. It was a speech every time you opted for honesty over retaliation. Every time you rose from adversity, it was a rally that no one ever saw. However, the appropriate individuals were observing. They now understand that your existence was more than simply sporadic suffering. It served as a testing ground for God. Your tale wasn't merely discovered by the Secret Service agent. They were examining your design. They realized that you were being guided by something deeper. While most individuals need the consent of others to go, you didn't plead for favors. For a platform, you didn't sacrifice your soul. Even when it seemed like no one believed in you, you just continued to walk. They have faith in that kind of inner conviction, because you can be trusted to guide people without taking advantage of them, if you can guide yourself through that much misery without collapsing. Office sounded good, but they didn't recommend it. They saw in you an antique quality, something sacred that endures whatever life throws at you. Your decisions, your quiet, and your composure under duress have all been used as campaigning tools. The world is just now beginning to realize what your soul has always understood. You weren't only getting by, they were positioning you. There was no need for a campaign manager. Your CV was already being written by heaven. Furthermore, this is only the beginning, even with the endorsement. The unveiling is it. Your life already voted for this time, even if you didn't ask for it, and the system is now beginning to reverberate what the divine has been saying for years. It's you. Eighth, you are already in charge without a budget, office, or support. That is the power of God. Long before you were given a title or a salary, you were already a leader. Since leadership isn't about benefits, you don't need a large government budget or a nice office to create an impression. It has to do with presence. You have already altered discussions, altered viewpoints, and revealed facts in ways that many political officials can only imagine. Because you've experienced the truth, you can use a phrase to destroy falsehoods. You change the space, not simply respond to it. That's what real leadership is all about. They believe you will fit the mold, which is why they are not pushing you to run for government. They know you've already broken it, which is why they're asking. They see your indisputable influence and want to magnify it, using the resources and platform that come with a public position. Although a title is not necessary for leadership, it does make your influence unavoidable. They use the endorsement to acknowledge that you have already taken the lead without anyone's consent, and that it is now time for the rest of the world to formally follow.